Good morning and welcome to this UK5G event, 5G for Sports Unlocking the Full Potential. My name is Ivana Vilk and I'm the Knowledge Transfer Manager at Knowledge Transfer Network, one of the delivery partners of UK5G Innovation Network. Thank you for joining us today. We were obviously supposed to meet in person today, so again, thank you for still joining us online, and I hope you enjoy the session today. So just to give you a quick overview of the agenda today, we will kick off with a presentation by Stagg about 5G technology and what 5G can bring into the sports industry. We will then have a discussion panel with a Q&A session. And in the final part, we will break into smaller rooms, each of them discussing a different topic around 5G for sports. And finally, in the last part of the event, Bojarski, the CEO of Sceenic, which is the platform that we're using today to deliver this event, will provide a demo of the system. I think that's everything from me. If you have any questions throughout the session, please use the public chat. Otherwise, I'm now handing over to Claire Harvey, the chair of UK5G Creative Industries Working Group. Claire, over to you.
Thank you, Ivona, and hello everyone, and welcome to our re-engineered session. We're very sad that we're not in Ipswich at the Innovation Lab with BT, but hopefully we will be able to bring you the essence of what you would have experienced there. We're very keen to keep the event going in its original format as far as we could, really for three reasons. We wanted to be able to give the opportunity to talk about 5G in sport, and perhaps also at the moment how sport is really re-engineering in the corona pandemic to use ultra-fast connectivity to bring sports to our screens. We thought it was also really important for people to be able to network and meet other people. I know that cancellation of conferences is a real a problem for getting out and about and talking and meeting new partners, and we're very keen to enable that to happen. Hopefully, if you're happy with this, we'll be able to circulate the list of all the attendees after. We would really encourage everybody to be in touch. Also, as Ivona said, you can do private chats and in the workshop sessions, so please feel free to reach out to your fellow delegates. And also, this is part of a series that we're running as part of the Creative Industries Working Group to promote a new fund called 5G Create, which has been set up by DCMS, and all details you can find on the UK5G website. And hopefully you will be able to take some ideas from this session and from other places, meet some new people, and also really encourage you to get involved with that scheme. Again, it's money, and I know for some people that's more important now than it was even a month ago. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the session, and any questions, please let any of us know. Thank you.
Let's crack on. I'm going to put my timer on because if you know me, you'll know exactly how long I like to talk for. I want to send everybody to sleep. Right. Thank you very much to Ivana and Claire for that introduction. Let's crack on, as I don't want to keep you waiting anymore. So some of you know me, some of you don't. So I look after mobile strategy at BT Sport. I also work for the wider BT group, looking how we can take some of our 5G and mobile innovations to the wider UK community for things like breaking news, other sports industries. Also a member, very proud actually to be a member of such a great group of people within the Creative Industries Working Group. So let's move on. So I shall. Next slide. Right. How 5G will revolutionise sport media and entertainment industry. If you're not a Norwich fan, as I am not, I do apologise for Captain Canary. If you are a Norwich fan, you'll know who he is. It just happens to be our template. Right, moving on. What I wanted to do to start with very quickly is explain where we are in the 4G world. Certainly in the UK, we've all operators have now rolled out or launched 5G, but we're still very much part of a 4G community, and very timely, I guess, at the moment with people working from home. We're using the 4G network a lot. Not so timely is video dominates 4G network, more so now, but obviously not during live sport. But normally under live sport, you will see a huge spike in the mobile network, which I'll come on to. So we when 4G was launched, weren't really sure that the video sort of tsunami was coming along, and then a combination of things. Screens were getting bigger, content was getting better. We were getting moving away from short form to long form, more professional content on YouTube, iPlayer, etc. And uplink was found to be useful within the broadcasting industry, obviously, where it's difficult to get satellite, or some places breaking news, for instance, some of the lower league sports, very costly to be able to put a full OB operation there. And so we had we started to use that. Now, the one thing that was different to everything else that we use for sports broadcasting, it was best effort. So it was always used as a best effort. 4G is one network that's shared by anyone who uses it. And this is where we needed 5G to be able to help with that. And we'll come on to why. So next slide is, again, we talked about live sport on 4G. You can see here, these are the huge peaks that we see now. This is obviously on the downlink, but as we see more and more people viewing, but also resolutions getting bigger, and what you can see there is this was during the 2017 Champions League final, where we had two absolutely fantastic games, and you can see the spikes there. The interesting one, and this is how unpredictable on 4G we see traffic, and why 5G is going to be a great benefit on the distribution side of things, is you can see on the second one, Real Madrid versus Juventus, it was going to be a walkover, or supposedly. So you can see that watching the first half, as social media and texting and everything came to say it was actually one of the best games we've ever seen in Champions League, you can see two that was across the whole of the network, but there would have been places where that caused congestion, and that's where 5G really will be a game changer, especially when you look at some of the densely packed areas where, regardless of how much spectrum you have, 4G still struggles. So that's where we are on 4G and where we're going on 5G. Now we're going to look at how we use 5G for our industry end to end. So 5G is going to be used from camera all the way through to production, remote production, out through distribution. We move into the immersive area. So really is what we call glass to glass, and that is multiple cameras, different types of cameras through to devices, be them smartphones, tablets, AR glasses, VR in the home. And we have to remember that 5G is not just going to be used on the move. It's also a good technology for what we call fixed wireless access, which means where you cannot get a good connection, or it's not commercially viable to dig up the roads to reach some of these areas, we'll use 5G to the home and then Wi-Fi within the home. So you're actually going to see a lot of fixed infrastructure that would normally be using fiber back is going to be using 5G. So there are a lot of other things to take into account. It isn't just the mobility and the smartphones that we're seeing now on 4G. So very quick recap, if you don't know, and I work in the mobile industry, in the sports industry, that obviously I look at all of this every time. So we might talk about it a lot, but it's very new to the broadcasting industry, and that's why, and the creative industry in general. So that's why our working groups here, and I obviously look at the sports side of things. In a nutshell, it's faster, multiple times faster. We have ultra low latency, multiple devices, and there's new technologies coming along like network slicing, where you can virtualize networks. I think one of the big things that hasn't been discussed widely is we talk about the potentials. So every time someone says, and you can see from this slide here, tens of thousands more traffic, less than 1 millisecond latency, everybody isn't going to get that. If you take the requirements that came in from all the different industries, which was different to 4G as well. It wasn't just the telecoms industry that did it. We were having lots of other industries that came in from the healthcare, media and broadcast, media entertainment and broadcast, agriculture, all of these different industries. And one of the 1 millisecond latency actually came out of the automotive because it's braking distance to for autonomous cars. Now, to be able to get some of these, it's going to be very expensive. At the moment, we have what we call in the UK, everyone is launched with what we call enhanced mobile broadband. So that is a very fast, great connection to be able to provide our consumers with a good 5G experience for all of their usage that they want to do. What we need within media and entertainment, and certainly broadcast, was to look at, on the contribution side, the one thing that stopped 4G from being able to be used as a primary contribution network. So camera, either back to an OB or directly back to the studios for remote production. So you can see all of these different, areas of media and broadcast that have a play into what 5G can bring to them. And I think, again, it shows how complex our industry is and how 5G plays into all of these areas. One of the big things, as we said, is how we can do remote production. So what you need is to be able to separate your broadcast network from your consumer network. So what that means is there's a number of different technologies. It's normally known as network slicing. It's because that's how people understand it. It is a virtual network where you can separate your consumer network from other networks. That might be a healthcare network, that might be a media network. And then that allows you to be able to put on some of these features that you wouldn't get. One of the big ones is a guaranteed quality of service. So that means in an area, especially an area of sports, if you're at a ground and you want to use 5G cameras, lots of good reasons to use 5G cameras. But what you can't have is all of the crowd coming up, you're on the same network, lots of uplink. So you've got lots of people updating social media. Camera resolutions have a massive impact now because the files that you send up and the videos you send up are at a higher resolution, so they're using more data. And people do a lot of personal broadcasts, especially now. Things like you use sort of Periscope, Facebook Live, all of the things that we're actually using now in this current climate to stay in contact with each other. So network slicing allows you to take all of that away, and you have a network that's purely broadcast, and that can come in different ways. We're looking at things like private networks, where you install just a network for this. It operates on the same infrastructure, but it's all virtual. And then we can look at the distribution side. So we've got in-car entertainment within stadiums. It allows a massive, opens up the experience that you can have for your consumers, so that they can start to do a lot more things. And the big thing that we're looking at, and we'll show you later on, is how 5G can enhance the experience. It can, if people can't get to the stadium, it allows to enhance that experience. And also we can enhance the experience of people in the stadium which don't normally see the broadcast. So we're going to move on now to exactly what I talked about, is how we do remote production and 5G broadcasting. We did a trial with at the Wembley Cup, BT Sport and EE working together, which is part of the BT group. And I'm going to show you the highlights of that week that we did.
It's a busy week here at Wembley. It is the EE Wembley Cup here on Sunday. and that'll be the first live sporting event to be produced remotely using 5G technology. And ahead of that milestone, today between Wembley here and the XL Exhibition Centre over in East London, we've been demonstrating live broadcasts using remote production with 5G technology.
We're here at the Wembley Cup. This is the TV compound, which is normally an area that is rammed full of OB trucks and a whole fleet of sporting vehicles. And it's not today. This is a world's first. We're remote producing a game over 5G connectivity, which has never been done before. In that some of the cameras here are all connected back to our Stratford base using a 5G system and being produced by a director who's in our gallery at Stratford.
Our network now, the network is over 60% of video, which means actually we have a video distribution network. Here you've got 30,000 predominantly kids between the sort of 6 and 16, all sending updates on social media. Quite a lot of personal broadcasts, so there'll be lots of people using YouTube Live and Facebook Live, Periscope, etc. So what 5G allows us to do is there's a technology called network slicing, which means that we can create a broadcast grade network.
The Wembley Cup's really exciting, the world's first live 5G event covered by BT Sport going out on Spencer FC YouTube channel. The important thing for this is about how we take our audiences to the heart of sport. It's about how we use innovation to be able to do things differently, to be able to do more, to be able to do things faster. 5G is really, really exciting for a broadcaster. It will up the creative opportunity. At the same time, it will drive efficiencies, which will enable us to do more and better.
BT Sport offers a wide variety of different events across Speedway, National League, Women's Super League, all up to the Premier League, and I would imagine that within 5 years we'll be talking about transforming a huge number of those events' coverage into being 5G contributed, which means we'd have hopefully goals from every single match in those significant leagues. Every single race from the Speedway could be all coming back in real time. Those are then going out either into highlight shows or probably faster onto social and making really interesting programming and lots more of it, bringing fans so much more action than they are enjoying right now.
Okay, so what I want to do is explain how this was done. I'm not going to talk about remote production. I think we're going to bring remote production on because there are a number of benefits that it brings, regardless of which technology and radio bearer you use or any of the contribution methods. And we will talk about that in our panel. So what we had was the 5G mast was at Wembley Stadium. So we had a 5G router connected to a bonding device, which was connected to the camera. That then went back to our core network at Boreham Wood, where we then split out to the internet and connected to the studios. What we would do what we will move to do anyway with 4G is we're going to directly connect the core network without going out via the internet. And that's something we'll do for broadcast as well, where we will be able to have that traffic without taking it out to the network. That was then produced, as we said, remotely. So it was back at the gallery. We didn't have an OB. And then sent out to Spencer FC's YouTube channel, where people were watching it on the go or in their home. And actually, at the stadium, we were watching it on a 4K. We were watching it on a HD TV over 5G. So we had the true glass-to-glass experience. So one of the things that we are very interested in, it's been mentioned many times across many verticals, is the immersive experience. Now, when we talk about immersive, we're talking about anything to do with augmented reality, extended reality, which is kind of a mix of multiple things within the real world, overlaid on the real world, and virtual reality. We never really used to talk about virtual reality in terms of mobile networks, and mainly because virtual reality is a static experience taking you out of that static experience, which meant you normally were on Wi-Fi, or you were walking around if you've if you've not seen the Johnny English film, you were walking around with it on your head, causing mayhem out on the streets. But now we talked about fixed wireless access, that's going to be playing a part, because whilst you might be in your own home, you're still using the 5G network. The low latency is key. If any of you have ever done anything with immersive technology, the key is to be able to have things as you move your head, to be able to have everything following you, and then if you're outside using augmented reality, you need it to be quick, because you're going to be looking at overlays. You're going to be saying, where's your seat? You're going to be looking at the pitch. You're going to be wanting to know from sensors what's happening. So again, we'll be looking maybe at a separate network for augmented reality, or a lot of it will just be able to be done on the normal capacity. When we start to look at the tactile internet, volumetrics, so 6 degrees of freedom, you're going to need a lot of bandwidth to be able to get that through to your phone, especially, again, as we say, in dense urban environments and in dense environments in general. If you're talking train stations, stadiums, not just stadiums, if you're out on golf courses, lots of different sporting events that are outside, but you still have a lot of people in one area. And again, a uniform experience. You can't have it working sometimes and not working another. As we all know in this industry, it's better to have a standard definition stream than have a stream that's sometimes HD and sometimes ST. You really want a uniform experience, and that's what it brings to us. So we've always been looking forward, and as I said, I'm in strategy, so as well as looking at what we can implement in the near future around mobile side of BT Sports, we're looking at where we're going to go. So we talk a lot about where we can go with this and all the different things, but sometimes it's very difficult to get your vision across to people. So we're very lucky. We have a great creative team and a production team. So we wrote down what we thought the future could look like, and then we had our team go and pull it together. Some of these things will definitely happen. Some of them are happening. We have a lot of demos that we will be releasing as soon as we get some sport back on. Obviously, everything's ground to a halt in terms of what we can do, but we are continuing to work, and it's given us time to sit back and look at how we can bring some of this to life. And hopefully you'll enjoy it. I certainly like it. So please, Ivana, can we play the final video and the end slide?
We love football because it's always changing. And so is the way we bring it to you. At BT Sport, we've always been at the forefront of the latest technology. We already bring you enhanced experiences with our BT Sport app. And now, we're at the dawn of a whole new era. A breakthrough that will truly revolutionise the way we enjoy the beautiful game.
This is 5G, and it is really amazing.
Get ready for the immersive media revolution. What this all means is that with 5G, every seat will be the best seat in the house. Literally.
Oh, you're here, are you?
Yeah, sorry mate, I had to take the dog out. You'll be able to share every moment in real time wherever you are with whoever you choose to. And no lag.
This is what ultra low latency looks like.
A reaction time that you simply wouldn't believe.
Alexander-Arnold, perfectly done. Salah's in here. He scored!
Never miss a thing with an untethered viewing experience.
You're watching this?
Yeah, I've got it on.
And it's a penalty to City. He saved it!
Oh, wow, look at that.
What is it?
It's a red devil.
With 5G, get that thrill you felt at your very first game. Guaranteed every time.
It means we can bring the viewer at home to the heart of the action and the power of broadcast to everyone at the stadium.
No, look.
He doesn't touch the ball.
The reliability and speed of 5G will enable us to control an array of cameras that will create a total field of view.
Where would you hit it?
Top left.
Unlocking ways of seeing every moment. From the optimum, unobstructed angle, and giving our production teams unlimited creative freedom. And if you miss anything, multi-angle replays will let you see it again and again in your own time.
Oh, it's fantastic!
Bamian.
All of this can be experienced with devices like these glasses, and in the future, maybe even without.
I can make you disappear.
Stop it. The game is the same as it ever was.
But the possible is unlimited.
Oh, I've got a message. It's from Bamian.
Get off the pitch! 5G is coming, and one of the driving forces behind it is BT Sport. We can't wait.
Okay, and that was the last slide. I hope you enjoyed that. I really, it's hats off to our in-house creative team to pull that together. But I do take one thing from it. Only a person from the West Country can write a tractor into a video about the future. It wasn't a John Deere or a Massey Ferguson, and I'll let you guess, and you can email me afterwards. And there's no prize for anyone gets it right, apart from some West Country kudos. Okay, I'm going to hand back now to Ivana when we will move on to our next phase of this event. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ivona, and thanks, Matt, for the presentation. Always really good to hear you talk about 5G and what it's going to bring, and we all love those videos, so thank you. Since we started planning this event, sports has been upended. Not the only industry to be upended by the coronavirus pandemic, but sport has certainly been one of the first to be hit, and very publicly. Brian, IMG produces thousands of hours of content every year of live sports. How are you dealing with all of this? Is your move to remote production accelerated? Are you largely achieving what Matt set out in his presentation?
To be honest, we've been doing remote for quite a while now. The reason why we've been able to do it is because we have fibre connectivity to every Premier League ground and football stadiums across the country. The interesting thing with 5G is that I'll be able to get that sort of level of connectivity at other events and other stadiums and other venues. So as an example, if I had 5G covered on a golf course, then we could revolutionise the way we do golf at this moment in time. So that's where it's interesting at this moment in time. Remote is necessarily taking a back seat because we don't have as many events to do remote. We basically are now doing things like taking classic matches, revoicing them from presenters' houses and players' houses. And again, you can see you'll see across most of the broadcasters, the quality you're getting back from these venues is Skype-ish in quality. But with 5G and pushing the boundaries, who knows what that could look like in a couple of years' time.
Thanks, Brian. I think it's an interesting area, remote production, and how we move between 4G and 5G. Matt, I mean, we set out a vision for remote production in a 5G world, but actually, looking at how BT Sport produced MotoGP over the weekend, that was about as remote as you can get. Do we actually need 5G to realise remote production?
We don't. In fact, we can do it, and we do it for some of our either lower league or lower tier sports. The main thing that we have is the fact that it's still best effort. So you are just, not fingers crossed. We can do a lot of testing and we understand the areas, but to do have as your primary production or your primary camera method is just it's just not really, I guess you don't feel safe You know, you could, through no fault of any of the production team, any of the technology, just the fact that, you know, you have a few more people than you thought turning up, doing a few more different things, and then you run into congestion. But, you know, I'm using 4G now to bring this to you. And that was nothing to do with the fact that I couldn't work my camera or the sound. But we're using it now. And as you see, we did it a lot. We produced Saturday morning football, early kickoff over 4G, and we've done a lot, and we've got, you know, sound mixers, sound engineers in different locations. We're using 4G, but we do need that belt and braces approach to say we understand what we're going to get, and we're going to be able to use this, as we said, for you know, for Brian to be able to use it for golf. The amount of money that goes into producing something like that, you don't want to have anything that you cannot 100% rely on, like you could satellite or fiber.
Sure. And I suppose the difference between, you know, the events you're talking about, Brian and Matt, is, you know, these are largely in stadiums with full fiber connectivity. You know, one of the exciting things I think about 5G is being able to bring to tier 2 and tier 3 sports, which may have smaller audiences, so can't afford to be in these larger areas, have these big set pieces, and to be brought from, you know, more remote environments. Alison, you know, in terms of stadium connectivity and non-stadium connectivity, can you talk a little bit about how 5G, you know, would benefit those more remote areas compared to what we have in stadiums?
Well, I guess there's two parts to it. With 5G, you can also set up a local group. So there's this concept of a non-public group. So there is an element where if you at a remote location, you can set up a 5G with 5G cameras to have this kind of a local group, and then backhaul it from that. You know, whether it's a local stadium over the internet or over a fibre. So you can do it that way. So, but then the coverage of 5G going forward. So at the moment, obviously, it's focusing on the cities, so it's focusing on sort of urban conurbations. BT also does, BT and EE, we also cover the emergency services. So that means that we have an obligation to cover not just the 99% of the population, but of the actual geography as well. So that means that it will get rolled out sort of further and further afield. And that is one of the things, is that obviously putting up those cell sites for the 5G is very costly. But you can then deploy, so you can use the features and benefits of 5G in different ways. So as I said, you wouldn't necessarily have to have 5G coverage at that location and backhaul it over the 5G network. You could backhaul it across an existing private network, you know, a contribution network, on the internet if necessary.
Yeah. Yes, it's there's all sorts of horses for courses, and I think what's interesting is that remote production is being brought to life, but actually that 5G will be able to extend the scope of that remote production to bring more events to our screens. I think also my understanding is, in terms of the standards, is that 5G standards, which will be rolled out in a couple of years, will be able to enable in-sync cameras and audio in a way that we haven't seen before. Brian, are you able to reflect a little bit on that type of production?
Yeah, well, as people are pointing out, you can do this with 4G now, even with the in-sync cameras. It's just not as reliable. And we're all hoping that 5G comes along and makes it more reliable and more cost effective. You know, you can go to a stadium now and have one camera, but if I could turn around and say, let's use someone's mobile phone in 2 or 3 years' time, and I get just as good a quality as I do now, it just opens up more and more possibilities. All 5G is options. It's like AI. It just gives you more and more options. And it's how we, as an industry, make the best use of those options.
Yeah,
thank you. I think adding to, very quickly adding to that, is we had seen 5G being for sports like golf or some of the ones where you can't spend as much money on a 8-camera production. You take 4 cameras, it can look like an 8-camera production. You can use them, but because of the creative opportunities of having untethered cameras, we assumed that we would always, if you've got fiber, you'll use fiber. That's it. It's the best and most economical way of doing it. So, but in a stadium, we realized that our directors had such creative freedom to be able to move around, to do lots of other things you can't do with radio cameras, that we decided that actually it is a good technology to have a mixture in stadiums of 5G and 4G and fixed cameras. But then we needed to be able to look at new technologies like edge computing to be able to break them out, to either go into the OB or join all the rest of the camera feeds. And that was something that we hadn't expected. And I think it was a really good example of how the technology doesn't just change economics, it also changes how we can bring sport to the consumer.
Thank you. I just want to move on a little bit from contribution to our audiences. Paul, and we should mention that Paul's platform Sceenic is screening this. In terms of viewers, and particularly the inability to get viewers into stadiums at the moment, we're seeing a lot of sports going virtual. So Grand National is going to be virtual next weekend. I think the Alpine World Cup is going to be virtual. It's this kind of crossover between physical sport and e-sport, and how that will affect it. How do you see that sort of panning out through this particular crisis and into the 5G world?
Yeah, so obviously we started with laptop gaming and console gaming that was on fixed networks. Now, for example, in India, there are mobile titles in esports, such as PUBG. I'm just quoting some figures: 50 million downloads, 33 million active monthly users, and that's a mobile-first game called PUBG. Then you look at games like Mobile Legends, 500 million downloads, 75 million active users. Again, mobile first. So the opportunities for telcos to tie up with mobile game producers such as Riot or King are huge there. So that's how we see the development sort of in esports on the consumption side. Just users consuming now a lot more mobile, which wasn't there 3 or 4 years ago. It was all Dota 2 on your console at home over fixed, or League of Legends, and now it's sprung. 4G and 5G has sprung sort of a new industry worth billions in mobile gaming.
Again, this is an incredible growth on ostensibly a 4G network. How's the network coping with that, Alison? How is it responding? And also, I suppose, in the current crisis, how is it changing to the changing demands?
I mean, I don't work in the mobile sector. Obviously, we in the media side, but from all the things that we've seen across, the internal briefings, is that the network is holding up really, really well. I mean, across all of our networks. So. And that's the thing, is that if you do, when you make these plannings, obviously we have the ability, of the reach, etc. And the way that people are using things at the moment, obviously, it spreads the traffic around different geographic locations. So we're probably not centred on that sort of concentration in those different areas. So obviously, in central London, you'll have a mass of people travelling and in there. So the network is, it is provisioned to be able to do all that coverage at the moment. So and people are probably using more broadband at home than they are 4G at the moment. So everyone would probably choose to use the Wi-Fi at home versus their broadband. So I think that's where it is, and that would be the same thing going forward. I personally never see that 5G will completely replace the fixed network, because it will just be this shared element. So obviously, if you've got the ability to connect to a fixed wired, that will give you the lower latency and the higher SLAs all the time. It's always going to be. But then you have the ability to sort of mix and match, and the device that you're using, the user device, will then pick and choose which is the most appropriate network at that time. So.
Matt, just to pick up on your presentation, you know, the network slicing element of 5G, which you hear about, I think that's very exciting in terms of being able to guarantee, as you say, some people are stuck at home, so they're on fixed lines. But, you know, hopefully we will get out at some point and people will be moving around and using the mobile network, and 5G will be able to give that reliability. Matt, we talked a little bit about multicast in terms of distribution out as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so it was. I guess I showed that that graph in the minute. We've looked at multicast and broadcast over mobile, mainly because if we get so many people in the same cell site watching the same content, inevitably you're going to reach a level where you're going to start adaptive bitrate or drop. So. And other people are in there that don't watch video, and in fact, video is quite a selfish, hungry part of the network, if you like, because as soon as there's any bandwidth there, adaptive bitrate will always want it to step up. So you've always got this this content-based latent demand, as we say. So and then you've got other people that don't have, they just want to do browsing and things like that, and TCP applications don't cope very well. So one-to-many is very good in terms of maintaining the quality, high quality of what is a very expensive production. Also, the network economics are phenomenal. If spectrum is very expensive and it's finite. So a lot of people have said, we had problems globally being able to launch 4G LTE broadcast, EMBMS. That was mainly because of device support and because it was never envisaged when the standards were done that broadcast would ever be used for live sport or multiple live events. It was just in there to say you can do this if you want. So it wasn't handset support. Now we absolutely are working together, and Ian is in our team, Ian Wagden, in our UK5G team from BBC is very heavily involved in this, as are a few of us, because you need to get that one-to-many. Lots of other things, we have multiple downloads. If one of the biggest amounts of traffic on our network, it's actually spread out, but was the Call of Duty update on fixed as well. And you can start to use broadcast technologies to carousel that type of thing. And one of the big things in 5G of one-to-many is at some point terrestrial TV has a lifetime. We're going to have to do something with it, even if that's move to all IP or whatever. And the 5G technology will have a place to play in that. So without doubt, we're going to need one-to-many, regardless of how much bandwidth you can actually get to a cell site. It's still very expensive.
When all of this washes through, Paul, and I think we need to expect that 5G may have had impact in terms of the standards rollout, but these things will be on the way. Can you tell us a little bit about what fans can expect to see once the full suite of 5G technologies are rolled out?
Yeah, sure. So today, what we, for example, as Sceenic, what we're seeing is that 42% of the users who use our technology, which is called Watch Together, to watch, say, sports together, reality TV, or even a movie with friends whilst they're video chatting, 42% of them actually choose to do it on a mobile network, right? So that's LTE and 4G. And we're absolutely shocked by that because we're expecting it to be around 10 to 15%. And 90% on Wi-Fi and fiber. Now, out of that, it's not all perfect. 9% complain about lag, right? So of course, various, our panelists here have alluded to, just on 5G, it will be better, more stable, and we haven't even touched on the edge computing. So, for example, with the digital catapult. In Brighton, we run a test on the Brighton test bed where we actually deployed our Watch Together video chat on the edge. It was release 15, low band, but it was on the edge. Yes, fair enough, it was hitting the same cell, but we saw already better synchronization between everyone. If you see a goal, okay, if you're a second out, it's fine, but for sports betting, latency is very important. So we're seeing early trials of us deploying on the edge. Rather, right now, we're going to Google Cloud or Oracle Cloud or whatever, and then coming back and so forth, right? So those are the little numbers that I wanted to give you. That is not all hunky-dory. Yes, it works on 4G today and Wi-Fi. Now, what can we see in the future with 5G? I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of AR. AR is bandwidth heavy. It needs lower latency, like Matt said. If you're looking up at your seat, in a stadium, or you're out and about on a golf course, you want to see things as they're happening, not 2, 3, 5, 30 seconds later. So we're definitely going to see, I think, more AR applications because they're bandwidth heavy, low latency. Secondly, in terms of esports, right now for players to play together, so this is multiplayer gaming, people have to be on the same server. So gamers normally play people that are connected on the same server. And if you're shooting someone in Fortnite, of course, you don't want, it has to be really, 5 to 40 milliseconds of latency. The lower, the better for that kind of reactions. Sports betting is another one, and so forth. So I think in the future, we will see a lot more of AR being used on 5G. We will see lower latency, and then people will start playing, and companies will start playing. What does it mean to deploy your infrastructure, whether it's video calling, watch together, or AR experiences on the edge? And that's what's already being trialed and tested and shown through organizations like Digital Catapult and others, and it's coming soon, hopefully, to people's hands.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Paul. I can see lots of questions coming through. Anita, what have we got there for our panel?
If you look in the shared notes.
If I look in the shared notes, I'm going to just come from the top. Okay, so
please unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Hi, panelists. So we've had some lovely questions coming through, actually, people typing things in, and I've been collecting them as you've been putting them in. So we've got a couple of questions here. We've got one from Tony, who is asking, what are the relative advantages between 5G and fixed wire fibre optics?
Who wants to take that one on?
Do you want me to take that one?
Go, Alison.
Yeah. So I guess there's the difference between, fixed wire is always going to be, if you have it, obviously the clue is in the name, fixed wire. That will always be better, depending on what you've bought, a dedicated fibre, a contribution fibre. If it's an internet connection, then that could be questionable. But obviously the benefit in the 5G is it gives you some of the capabilities of the fixed network. So when 5G has the slicing and the low latency in, but you can then do it in a mobile fashion. So whether that's truly mobile, completely moving, or whether that's kind of just untethered effectively in a locality. So that's really, it's going to be some time before 5G, can compete. Obviously, fixed wire, you can have bandwidths from 1 meg to 100 gig if you wish. So some of the sports centre stadiums that we do with IMG is that we fibre up those football stadiums with 100 gig. So you're never going to get that on 5G, but you have the availability to roam on 5G.
Thanks, Alison. Anita, what else have we got?
So we have a question from Rory Davis from OnWave. What about bonded 4G using all 4 networks?
I'm quite happy to go at that one. And Brian, please come in if you need to. That works well. The bonding devices have really changed how we can do production over mobile. The thing is, you are still in the same situation of being on a best effort network. And always, most of the places you want to do this are places of massive high footfall. So, if you're at a sporting event, it doesn't need to be stadium, one of the big things is they're popular, so they're being televised. And if they're being televised, you will have other people there. I mean, golf is a perfect example of everybody around the hole looking at putting out or teeing off. And every network has the same thing. You can only put capacity in for the busy hour. You can't put capacity in for a mobile operator won't be able to invest in in all events. So some events people do put more in, like Glastonbury. So that's the thing. You can bond them, but you may just be bonding more and more congested networks. So it's that reliability to be able to have, knowing that you've bought capacity. I see it in exactly the same way as you will. You do satellite now. You'll go on in the future. You'll say this location or these locations, I want this much bandwidth, this much latency for this amount of time on these dates. A price will come up. You'll be able to book it, and then that's yours.
Brian, do you want to add to that?
To be honest, there's nothing to add to that. I agree completely with everything Matt said.
Perfect.
Excellent. So our next question is from Andreas Alexiou from Digital Catapult. Does the impact of COVID-19 make it unrealistic for most sports companies to invest in new tech compared to just maintaining operations?
I think that's one for Paul.
I'll go.
Oh, sorry.
No, by me.
Paul, you're on mute.
Yeah, I don't know, Brian, you take it.
Well, so I can give you our sort of stances. At the moment, no one knows. So there's a fear of not making too many rash decisions at this moment in time that could seriously impact your business in the future. But like everything else, this is another opportunity. So there are new techs and new companies that we've never spoken to before that we are now speaking to because of the situation. So I wouldn't say invest in new tech companies is still an option, just different ones than we originally might have planned for. So the options are still there. And again, you have to be trying your best to lead and trying to get there as quickly as possible. So you're the first one who gets it out and you're the first one who pushes the boundaries. So yeah, again, what I'm saying this week, I might be saying something completely different next week at this moment in time, but there's still definitely new opportunities.
And I would just add to that, I think SMEs and corporates. So for example, we were offering something for live sports, and obviously that's been wiped out. Now we're working with corporates to what is it like watching together reruns, right? Watching together reruns as watch parties, watching together reruns with a famous presenter. So we're working, for example, with a boxing website called Pro Boxing Fans, and they're going to have Anthony Yard rewatch his match, a boxing match from 3 months ago, and comment it with fans. So it is changing, just to add to what Brian said. And so Andreas, yes, there has been an impact of COVID on the sports industry, but they're very quickly reacting, and they're saying to us, what can we do, because we don't have live sports, people can't watch things together live. But what about reruns? What about watching reruns with influencers? So on our side, yes, we're seeing a huge inbound to us as an SME, and things are going live with us. For example, Pro Boxing Fans is going live this week with that. So changing the mindset, and BT Sport has been doing some great stuff with Rio as well, using them because they're sitting around, obviously, and so that's what's happening. So we've seen an increase in inbound, and now launches happening this week and next week.
Thank you. We are running a little bit over time, but these questions are brilliant. So can we do 2 more quick ones? I say quick, but to the panel as well as for Anita.
Okay, so the next one is, what is being done about scaremongering around 5G?
Oh, good question. In terms of the health, is that in terms of the health aspect, Anita?
It doesn't actually say. It's from Matt Powell from BT. It doesn't actually say. So Matt, if you wanted to quickly elaborate and type in, just to clarify, that'd be great.
I mean, I think there is certainly, I don't know whether it comes under the banner of scaremonger, but there's quite a lot of hype around 5G. I think anyone who, has been since IBC last year and through, there has been a lot of hype about it. And I think, it's incumbent on all of us to be realistic about what it can deliver and when, so that we don't overpromise, underdeliver, and so on. So I think it's something that we can look forward to and work to get the full range of technologies that I think it's been promised. Rugby Media is an Ericsson company, and perhaps we are obviously are biased, but I think there is a tremendous opportunity out there in what our 5G can do, but I think we have to be realistic that it will be iterative in terms of the functionality that's rolled out and how we can use it in our particular industries.
That's great, thank you. And yes, that was around health. Thank you very much, Matt, for clarifying that. And our final question until we go into the next session, it's from Jonathan Sustain at Arise Studio. We heard about that Facebook has struck a deal with Plessey Semiconductors to work on augmented reality. And they're curious to know from the panel, from a consumer's perspective, how would you see that managed? Let's say in a stadium, how realistic and expected is it from the user behavior perspective and technically?
Oh, that's a very good question. Who wants to pick that one up?
I don't mind.
I can. Go on, Brian.
Well,
okay, so I can very quickly say then, we've rehearsed this. Me and Brian are always doing this. Very quickly, I think so. We will there'll be lots of augmented reality that will come out and will be used. And I think if we look at stadium and a person in the stadium, the number one thing that happens when you put 5G in a stadium is everybody that has a 5G phone gets a great connection. So being able to hit those areas of high density. So if anybody can launch an over-the-top service, as we will see lots of them, it won't be necessarily. We're if you look at BT Sport, although we're part of the BT group, when an EE customer or a Virgin customer or anybody watches it, we're an over-the-top application. So I think we'll see this. Would we have a deal with Facebook buying capacity? I think there are still things that we have to bear in mind around net neutrality. But in terms of being able to do AR and VR, it's 5G is a perfect, just as we have enhanced broadband. I'm not sure about the stadium stuff, and Brian, you might be able to help there.
Well, the only thing I was going to say was that from my perspective, clubs are going to realise that's a revenue stream they have full control over. So the more they make the stadium a better experience, the longer the consumer or fan will stay in the stadium. So if the game's finished and there's a VR match being played from another match, and you're watching it on the pitch, then I'll stay and have another pint, and I'll spend more money in the shop. And that's where clubs are necessarily going to look at 5G and think, oh, what can we do here that we can give to our 60,000 people sitting there watching? It's just a huge opportunity.
Yeah, that's good answer.
Thanks, Brian. Just to go back, Anita, just to Matt's question about health. I'm not an expert here, and I think the UK5G website has got information about health. Certainly, I think the matter is with Public Health England, and they are doing a number of studies and trials into it. So I'm going to be very unhelpful and direct you therefore for more information about the health aspects of 5G. Thank you. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all the questions. I know we haven't got through all of them. I think Ivona suggested that we will package up the questions and we'll respond to the panel. I'm volunteering them to respond to your questions after the event.
From my perspective, it was me talking a lot, so there wasn't a great deal of conversation, in fairness. So it's just opportunities. Opportunities. Who knows how what's gonna happen with 5G in the future? And there's an element of you might get clubs who are necessarily using, their coaches might necessarily use this data and use this footage to necessarily make their chances of winning improve. And so you need to think at every level of the entire business where 5G might be able to benefit you, not just broadcast, it could be anything.
Thank you, Brian. Alison, would you like to let us know what room 2 was talking about?
Right, yes, I think we had a few technical issues. There's only a couple of people that can actually speak, so I did a fair amount of talking. But we had the wonderful Ian Wagden on from BBC, who's obviously part of the 3GPP, probably the UK5G as well. So we did have a sort of conversation around, from a contribution perspective, so looking at outside broadcast remote production of 5G cameras. So it's about the timing is more important potentially for OBs than low latency. Obviously, with the element of synchronization. So Matt talked about it earlier, was the fact that we need to be able to synchronize the multiple cameras in an OB remote production. We also talked about quality service, and the one thing we haven't touched on yet in the wider conversation was obviously the type of video that we're talking about. So, the reality of using uncompressed is probably a non-reality. Most stuff will start using mezzanine formats, so it's 2110 because of the bandwidth restrictions. There's also talking about the cameras and the radio frequencies. So what needs to happen going forward is it's still 5G, and the radio quality needs to be, the audio quality needs to match the radio cameras going forward. We talked a little bit about release 16 and 17, and Ian says there's a new timeline for what features are coming out in release 16 and 17. So when they'll be happening. We also talked a little bit about the focus on the fact that you can do the non-public 5G networks. It's probably going to be quite a good test bed. So this is where you have effectively you set up a very small geographical location with a cell which acts as a 5G for that small kind of confined non-public network. And you can do slicing within there, so you have more flexibility, because the standards won't be adopted by the networks until they're fully ratified and fully implemented in the full end-to-end backhaul network. But if you're using a small non-public network with a small site, you have the flexibility of trying out some of those features just within your small network, which was good. So that will help the adoption. You can see what works, what doesn't work. And that gives that concept of 5G in a box. So effectively, you're going to kind of small cell there, and then backhaul it over fibre or a private network or a fibre network. We then talked about 5G cameras. Obviously, there's two elements here. There's one is the native stuff now with the 5G smartphones and your 5G tablets. So they'll all have pretty good cameras. So all sorts of courses, but the fact that there's a huge investment in existing cameras, so the existing camera technology is there. So what is more likely to happen is the adoption or the introduction of interfaces that can plug onto the back of existing camera, rather than actually replace the camera with a native 5G camera, because then you're going to have to keep replacing the camera again and again, and these are very costly, 50 grand for a camera. So certainly at some of these tier 1 events. But there are some elements where you could adopt a user device. So you might have the adoption of microphones as 5G rather than radio. The ability to use auto cue systems and talkback with 5G on the data side for auto cue, and then the talkback. But of course, one of the issues with that is that a lot of the in stadium, a lot of the current technology for microphones, talkback, and cameras uses a set of frequencies, which then is in conflict with the radio frequencies which 5G will wish to use from a broadcast perspective for general 5G. So yes, that was our chat.
Thank you, Alison. Paul, how about your room?
Yeah, it was a very lively discussion around esports, cloud gaming, and we had representatives from the investment industry, such as Tony, and people from corporates. So 6 points. We talked about cloud gaming. Philip mentioned it's not a new concept. It's been around since 2015, but will now 5G be the real push for cloud gaming? And that's still to see for us. We mentioned also competitive esports is done in stadiums, but at the moment over LAN connections. Will they move now to 5G? And with COVID, will they be able to play from their homes with the lower latency that's coming with the future releases? Uzair had a question about VR and AR. Will esports and 5G be the moment for maybe AR and VR? Previously, VR had some setbacks, such as the broadcaster, such as BT Sport, had to have really high quality cameras, bandwidth hungry ingest, and then the users at home watching in VR, to watch it in good quality, also had to have fiber optic internet. And of course, the thing of putting on a headset, some people like that, some didn't. But now will esports, because the esports users are very tech savvy, will they be the first adopters, and will esports be that? But will it need the low latency of 5G? Also, Uzair mentioned, how will telcos monetize esports partnerships? Is it partnering with the stadias, or is it partnering with the teams like Fnatic did with an Indian telco there, where they made that, and is that monetizable? So we said yes, it's sort of teams teaming up with telcos to stream them playing games, exclusive content around that, and for that. We also looked at athletes, so normal athletes during COVID. They're now playing esports tournaments. Question came up, will that carry on being beyond that? Right, and it will be really interesting to see what's the percentage of athletes who play traditional sports will remain playing esports, and I guess that will come in the future, but that's something we'll be looking out for. Augmented reality in 5G, will it be only younger audiences wanting that, or all aged audiences? And the last one was from Tony on investment. We asked him, he's making investments. What has he been investing in? He's been investing in infrastructure companies. And now the suggestion from the group came when he said, what should I be investing in 5G? Is it the fan engagement? Is it the people making apps? One of the suggestions was in cloud gaming providers or edge infrastructures, because everyone else will run on that, right? And we mentioned the 5G Create grant, which is open to SMEs and corporates right at the moment for another, I think, 6-7 weeks, 8 weeks. That can de-risk investors not having to fund so much of the R&D, but the business. So that is something that's a positive message for someone like Tony, who's part of an investment capital group with grants such as 5G, de-risking some of the R&D, so he can really put his money into marketing and sales and growth of the company, and a little bit into R&D. So those were the 6 points that we covered in esports.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. And yes, as Paul mentioned, the information about 5G Create competition can be found on UK5G website under Discover tab, Open Funding Competitions. Matt, I'm handing over to you now.
Okay, so thanks everyone who came into room 4. There were some really interesting discussions. I think, as you would probably expect, we touched on a lot of things. The main thing that came out of it, and I'll come on to where we were with that, was obviously very topical, very exciting, is the immersive technologies. We did have a good discussion around one-to-many. So 5G broadcast, but broadcast on the distribution side. And was there a place now for the 4G version, or we were going to wait? And we had different views. I put my view forward that that's not a technology that unless you've already invested, you would want to now. Just mainly because as we spoke about, you have your CapEx plan. And obviously money would be better spent in putting in 5G and extending our 4G coverage into more rural areas, as we've said, and putting in more capacity. But we still think there is a place for that, almost definitely, and I spoke about that earlier. So we need to make sure that we maintain momentum as we move through that. One of the other things that we touched on was the low latency, and obviously that plays in very much to the VR and AR experiences. And Jamie Allen from NVIDIA was explaining a lot about that and some of the work they're doing to bring down latency generally. And I think that's one thing that is worth bringing out is 5G doesn't solve all latency issues in broadcasting. If you actually look, so it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing some stuff in stadiums, then you need to turn it round, because you're actually racing your eyeball, to the ball between you in speed of light. So you're going to do some stuff around there. It needs to be quick, but if you take a camera, screen to screen, the delay is if you're over 4G and 5G, is going to go from say 80 milliseconds to 20 milliseconds. In terms of a percentage of that overall delay, it's absolutely minute once you go past all of the production stuff. So we do need to be careful about how we say latency is going to change this industry. It's going to change parts of this industry, and that came around edge computing. Costas came out with a really interesting a point about when we talk about getting different camera views, how about we share different content within the stadium from other people's phones, which I thought was a good idea. One of we've looked at before about user-generated content. Obviously outside the stadiums, and there's different rules around rights and what you can share. Inside stadiums, a bit different. Do need to look at, again, latency for that would be important, but also what we can do as a broadcaster or as a stadium around regulatory. We need arbitration for these sort of things, so you don't end up with swearing or something that you don't want on there. So there's some, there would be some potential hurdles, but I thought that was a great idea of, immersive. You have all of these different camera views already there. So that was it. But yeah, again, thanks to everyone who came in. There's certainly a lot I got out of that.
Thank you, Matt.
Sorry, Ivona, can I just add, Matt, to the low latency part as well? What you were saying, live streaming protocols such as RTMP, HLS, MPEG-, some of the new ones like CMAF that gets a broadcast live stream latency down to about 4 seconds of delay. Those things have to change as well, right? Not only just because the network has, just because as a user you have 500 megabits per second download, it's not going to make it's not going to make the live stream come quicker. If it's still going from the cloud WebSockets, and so forth. That's the thing, and some of the new protocols for live streaming, such as CMAF and some of those based on WebRTC, which makes it. That's what will help with the low latency as well. Not just because it's you're getting 500 megabits per second, and they have their own challenges as well around DRM and so forth. But the industry and there's providers coming in with that, with like Phoenix, Limelight, Akamai, and so forth. So sorry, just to jump in on that.
No. Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, it was really that was a really good point. Thank you.
Thank
Hi
you.
everyone. Well, we had a very niche room in room 5, but we had a really good conversation. A lot of what we were talking about actually was around partnerships and collaboration, and how do we keep things going, certainly in this current period, and then out the other side. We talked about how do you form relationships, possibly across borders, with competitors or with partners to develop new products. And I think this is quite an interesting point that we found, certainly in other sessions, that I think the telcos are very good at collaborating with potential people who may be seen as competitors, but the media industry is a little more shy of that kind of working. And I think what we've seen in UK5G in our working group is actually a real appetite for people to work together across borders and across value chains to think about things in a different way. I think we would be keen to encourage that through the 5G Create Fund, and certainly through events like this. I think we also talked about access to kit for testing and accelerators. And I think we can certainly follow that up with information about test beds and where you can start playing with things. We talked about dependencies, particularly around AR and VR for things like glasses and how that will roll out. And access to information is important. But going back to the sort of partnerships and new leads and meeting new people and keeping this chat going, I think we were certainly really pleased with the way this platform has enabled breakout rooms and for people to chat and hopefully to connect and make partnerships and to carry on talking. And we would really encourage everybody to do that. As big events are cancelled, NAB is cancelled, the Commonwealth Games are cancelled. These are big opportunities for companies to innovate and to meet new people and build up leads. We need to find different ways of doing it. And this kind of an event has been really good to just try and get people talking to each other again across different companies. So in our group, Rob from Vislink was talking about virtual NAB events where people can talk, and we would all really welcome that kind of thing. And Jonathan, who works in AR VR, looking at opportunities around specific events for the Commonwealth Games. How do we collaborate? How do we keep everything going? So we got some good feedback to this event, and I know some people have had some issues around the technology. I'd be interested to hear, and so we can build on that next time. But I think we've all been really pleased to be able to have a chat, basically.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, everyone. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this part of the event, the presentation, debate, Q&A, working in groups. We are now moving to the last main part of the event, which is a demo by Paul Bojarski, the CEO of Sceenic, who will demo for us their Watch Together software solution. Paul, handing over to you.
Thank you, Ivona, and sorry that I was looking at the other screen, and in a second, you guys will see why I was doing that. So let me just put on my camera. Okay, so yeah, this is why I'm sort of looking at another screen. Hi everyone, thanks for sticking around. So I'm going to do a quick demo that was going to be done in Ipswich to show you what we showed on 5G and actually deploying on the edge. So this is a demo of Scenic's Watch Together solution. Watch Together is a software solution through API and SDK that allows media companies, broadcasters, telcos, anyone who owns media content to allow their users to watch together whilst they video chat on the same screen. It's obviously bandwidth heavy, CPU heavy, uses the resources because you're essentially like doing Amazon Prime and Skyping at the same time. But we wanted to show you an Ipswich over 5G, but here we'll show you mixed over so 4G Wi-Fi. So I'm gonna just bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna be showing you. So what this shows is obviously I'm gonna have two mobiles. You know, we're looking at 5G being used on mobiles first. Okay, and what we'll show you is a simple demo of how a telco, broadcaster, cable operator, any media company that owns video content can bring this this experience to their users on mobile. So I'm going to open a demo app that we've built. Okay, and just don't mind the graphics. It will obviously be from someone an OTT platform. Will be much more beautiful. So you'd open that up, and obviously you would have some streams, live streams on esports, free running, and of course sports. This is a 5G in sports event. So I, as a user, would click on to watch that. Okay, and I'm watching the beautiful Barca Real Madrid game. I don't know, this was probably about 8 years ago, judging by how Messi looks and the rest. But anyway, so of course, as you can see here, on here, you have the main live stream content. So that is coming over live streaming to my mobile phone. And as you can see, you have one video chat camera. So of course, I'm just pointing at the laptop at the moment, but you could probably see me waving in the back. So that is a video chat window, okay? And now rather than switching in and out of Viber or WhatsApp or Zoom or FaceTime with your friends and trying to watch on the go, we're going to bring my friends to watch with me this. So what this does, it scans your address book, just like WhatsApp or Starling Bank or anyone scans it, okay? And it's search for my address book, Johnny, HTC Watch Together temporary number. So I'm going to invite HTC phone, okay? And hit invite. And now with my other hand, I'm going to unblock the other phone. And as you can see on the top, I've received a push notification. Okay, so watch together, Paul, join me, and let's watch together. So on the other phone, I'm just going to mute myself because obviously you don't want to be doing video call in the same space. On this phone, I'm going to hit that. Okay, log in. And now it says, watch together. Hey, Paul, invites you to watch together with him. Okay or cancel. I press OK.